Nam Shristam Manamapi Sachiputram Atra Surupam Rupam Tasyakraja Muripurim Maturim Gushtuatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Ahoradika Madhvasam Praptu Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Guru Tammanatosmi Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah Ananda Leelamaya Vigrahaya Hema Bhadyabhyat-chavi Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasapradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Chiltasta Kamadi Taram Kamahati Kripa Mahitvam Shanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Brinde Namaste Chanaravindam Govinda Damodara Madhaveti Govinda Damodara Madhaveti Govinda Damodara Madhaveti Govinda Damodara Madhaveti Hey Krishna, Hey Yadava, Hey Sakhi Govinda Damodara Madhaveti Shama Sundar Sakhanda Shekhar Smaraha Smurali Manada Radhikar Skhamama Kripanidhe Supriyacharna Kinkurim Kuru Tavayavasmi Na Jivami Tvayabana Iti Vikyaya Devi Tvam Nayamaham Charanantikam. Oh, with the class today, there will be some multimedia presentation to help visualize and understand some of the things we will be discussing. So perhaps if you're sitting here, you may want to come to a chair here or on this side because you won't be able to see from there. Just a suggestion. First of all, I offer my sastang dandavat puspanjali, my heart like flowers thousands of times at the lotus feet of my holy master, my supremely worshipable spiritual Gurudev, Asmadev Paramaradhatama Guru Pada Padma, Nitilila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Ashtotara Sata Sri Rupanugacharya Varya, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Oh, Nanda Gopal Prabhu, there's a seat. Oh, maybe you can keep the chairs there. There's a seat there also. Have to make sure that all the senior Vaishnavas are comfortable and they have a good view. Very good, yes. It's Gurudev's lotus feet.
That's the place to be.
That's the place to be, yes. So secondly, I offer my pranam at the lotus feet of my Param Gurudev, to Srila Prabhupada, and to all of our Sri Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Parampara. And finally, I offer my pranam to all the most respected disciples of Srila Prabhupada, all senior and all junior Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Please accept my pranam. Vanchakalpatarusha kripasinam Vaishnavibhyo. So, by the causeless mercy of Sri Gauranga Gauranga, so, yeah, no, it's still, some echo is there. Hare Krishna, yeah, thank you. By the causeless mercy of Sri Gauranga Gauranga, now we are approaching part 3 of the seminar on the subject of citta and prana. So already you have been listening for about 5 hours on the subject of citta and prana. Most people are also taking notes and studying. So that's good. And we covered a lot of the details of the basics of citta and prana and the ways in which our Goswamis and our acharyas have used these words in their explanations of a bhakti tattva. How the holy name appears in this world. How bhav appears in the form of Sambit and Ladini and enters into the citta vrittis, the movements of prana in the citta. So all of these things we have discussed. And then we went on to discuss actually janma karma chame dibyam evam yobeti tattvataha. How Sri Krishna's pastimes from the aprakat lila manifest prakat here through the same ontological sequence of layers that the holy name appears in the body of the individual. Because there's a parallel, the microcosm of the body and the macrocosm of the universe. So the principles between Sri Krishna's aprakat lila manifesting prakat in the universe and the principle of the holy name manifesting within our hearts, these principles are the same. So it gives a new, fresh meaning to the words. Abhinatvam nama namino. Krishna and his holy name are non-different. So all these things we discussed. Now we want to move on further and more deeply into how the concept of prana and citta is applicable and necessary in the presentation of the higher tattvas. Prem tattva, rasa tattva, Leela Tattva. So, first of all, here we are. Citta and Prana, part 3. In the conversation between Sri Ramananda Rai and our Sri Sachinandan Gohari on the bank of Godavari, when Mahaprabhu began his tour, after he'd gone on his tour of South India from Jagannath Puri after taking sannyas, in this conversation, Sri Ramananda Rai said, Madhya Vayasha Saki Skanda Karnyas Krishna Lila Manobriti Saki Ashapash. Here Manobriti. Manobriti is what? It's the movement of prana in the citta is called Manobriti. Now, see, Ramananda Rai is describing the glories of Srimati Radhika here. And he says that Krishna Lila Manobriti Saki Ashapash, that the Sakis of Radhika, they are running here and there very busily, in anxiety, always trying to arrange for Radha and Krishna's meetings. But who are these Sakis? The word Saki means friend. So you may have friends. But the relationship you have with your friends and the relationship that Radhika has with her friends, it's completely different. I mean, it may be like the Vikrita Tucha Pratipalan. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur uses the word. Vikrita Tucha Pratipalan. That means inverted, insignificant reflection. But that's where the similarity ends. You see, Yat sneya pura brit bhajana rajitaika Vartyaga vartamala deepa yukam chakasti Tats chaitaretara tamopanudak paroksham Anandayat akila pashva gatasadalihi. Radharani herself describing her relation with Krishna and her Sakhis. She said, there was one oil lamp. You know, in the temple sometimes they have very nice brass and it's big on the top and it's filled with oil. And they dip the wick in the oil. The wick is soaking in the oil and a piece of the wick comes out and they light that and the flame is burning there. So Radharani is saying, there's one oil lamp and it's filled with the oil of sneha, affection. And there's one wick. And this wick isn't dipped in and one end is lit. It's folded in half and it's dipped in and two ends are coming out of the oil. And both ends of the same wick have been lit. And so there's a flame. There are two flames. The two flames look as if they're separate. But under the oil, under the sneha, the fragrant, soft sneha, the word sneha, affection, also means oily. Because, if the two people meet and they don't have affection for each other, it's kind of their interactions are prickly. And they have rough edges. It's a prickly reaction. But when there's affection, the reactions are smooth. The interactions are smooth and soft. Because both are soft-hearted. So sneha is like oil. So Radhika said, actually Krishna and I, we are one Atma, we are one soul. We are like one wick, which is it's completely soaked in sneha. And our bodies are the two, a flame is like a teardrop. Like two teardrop flames, they seem separately. So our bodies seem separately, Radhika said, but our hearts are one. And our bodies stay alive, being nourished by the sneha, the affection. And my light illuminates Krishna. And Krishna's light illuminates me. And both of our light illuminates 8 directions. Who are the 8 directions? Astasakhis. Lalita, Vishaka, Chitra, Tampakalata, Tungavidya, Induleka, Rangadeva and Sudevi. So Radhika self described this, and that light is Krishna's happiness is the only happiness of Radhika. Radhika's happiness is the only happiness of Krishna. And Radha Krishna's happiness together is the only happiness of the Astasakhis. Huh? Beautiful. Anyone cannot give such a beautiful only Radhika herself can give such a beautiful example. So then Radhika said, Yadyapya virahamarutat etadata kampam bhaved yukapad eva bhajets chamurcham Vagyasaldali atavtaraneya teta tatshustayet swasukasadma gatam vidaya. The meaning is that, if there are two flames, 2 teardrop flames glowing, and they're at some distance from each other, but if the wind will blow, then they both tremble at the same time. They both flicker and tremble at the same. So in the same way, when Radha and Krishna are separated, then the viraha maruta, that means the wind of separation blows, and even though Krishna's there and Radhika's there, they both tremble at the same time. Because they're feeling separation from each other. They feel each other's separation. Krishna's not thinking, the Radhika is not thinking, I'm really suffering because I don't have Krishna. She's thinking, Krishna is suffering and that's why she's trembling. She doesn't think about her own happiness. Nagani apanaduka sobi banchet tarasuka tarasuka amarya tatparya. Radhika said, I never count my only happiness. I only think of Krishna's happiness. In fact, Krishna's happiness is the tatparya, it's the purport of my life. And if Krishna will derive happiness by giving suffering to me, then I accept that suffering as my greatest happiness. Right? Because there's no selfishness at all. This love is shining, immaculate, pristine, pure, no selfishness. It is only concerned with the happiness of the beloved. You see? So when the wind of separation blows, then both of the flames, that means Radha and Krishna both trembling at the same time, and they're about to faint. So at that time, the Sakhis are running here and there in great anxiety, just like sometimes the Pujari, he's lighting the deeps to offer to the deity, especially if you're doing a puja of the Ganges, you know, you're outside and the wind is blowing, and the Pujari is doing his best to try to stop the deeps from blowing out, right? You've seen it, and then he gets his cloth like that, and then another devotee comes with their chadar and says, I'll help you, and they hold up their chadar like this. Because the position of the flame is very fragile, very tender, very sensitive. So Radhika is very fragile, very tender, very sensitive. Shri Krishna virahehi radhikara dasha amito sahite nare jugal milan shukera karam jivana charite pari. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Aveshas Kamala Manjari is saying, oh, the condition of Radhika at the time of separation, birhadasha, I cannot tolerate it. And for the sake of bringing her together with Sri Krishna, I am ready to give up my life 1,000 times. This is the mood of the Sakhis and the Manjaris. They only think about Radha Krishna's happiness. And so just like the Pujari is protecting the flame, so the Manjaris and Sakhis, they're always running here and there in anxiety until, just as the Pujari may bring the flame to a sheltered place, so they can shine brightly and illuminate each other. So the Sakhis, they bring Radha and Krishna to the sheltered place of each, the happiness of each other's company. That's what they exist for. If that's your aspiration, that's what you're asking for, to be in this state of constant anxiety. But eventually, Jayo Jayo Radha Krishna Jukala Milan. 2 jais, not 1 jai. 1 jai is not enough. After all the obstacles, when they finally come together, Jai Jai Radha Krishna Jukala Milan. So, this is the relationship between Radha Krishna and the Sakhis and the nature of their pastimes. So Ramananda Rai here is saying Krishna Lila Manobriti Sakhi Ashopash. Imagine this, just picture this for a moment. It might not be pretty. Picture this for a moment, that all your thoughts, all the thoughts and feelings, that means your manobriti, your chitta brittis. You all know what chitta britti is now, right? After 5 hours discussing the subject. Just imagine that each one of your chitta brittis could jump out from your mind and then take a form, like a personal form, your chitta britti personified. Each and every thought or feeling that you have will jump out and take a form, and they're running around the room now. What would that look like? Just think about it for a minute. But that's what Ramananda Rai is saying here. Krishna Leela Manobriti Sakhi Ashapash. In Krishna's Leela, Radhika's 8 prominent psychological tendencies have taken forms, swarups, and they're running around here and there, and we call them Lalita, Vishaka, Chitra, Champagalata, Induleka, Tunga, Vidyaranga, and Sudeva. They are the Astasakhis. Understand? It's quite amazing. Like in Brahma Samhita, it says, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabis Tabi Ya Eva Nija Rupataya Kalabi. So, Krishna is the predominant nature of Chit, Samvit, and Radhika is Ananda. And when the two meet, there's a rasa, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabi. Tabi Ya Eva Nija Rupa. Radhika is Krishna's Nija Rup, his own expansion. Nija Rupataya Kalabi. And the Sakhis, all the gopis are the Kala, they are the expansions of Radhika herself. But particularly the Astasakhis, they are her 8 prominent psychological tendencies. Have they become personified? But by the arrangement of Yoga Maya, each and every one of them has their own individual ego. their own. There's Abhiman Bait. They have their own individual ego. So in the Leela, everyone is just like a separate person, just like we conceive of each other now. We're all separate persons. So they also have that idea. But ontologically, the actual fact of the matter is that all these Sakis, they are Radhika's manobritti. You see? So just like, let us say, there's some young girl notices one very beautiful boy. And then she may in her mind think, how can I meet with that person? So because Radhika's manobrittis are manifested outside, what actually happens is in the Braj Leela, the Sakis are looking and seeing Krishna and thinking, oh, it would be so nice if you could meet with our Saki. You understand? It's Radhika's manobritti, but manifest as the Sakis. So in Krishna Leela, the Leela develops in waves of love. Ramananda Rai later he will say to Mahaprabhu, Saki bina e lila pushti nahi hai, Saki lila vistariya Saki ashwadai. Saki bina e lila pushti nahi hai. Without the Sakis, the pastimes cannot be nourished. They're not nourished to their highest degree. Saki lila vistariya. And without the Sakis, the Leela cannot expand. And Saki Ashwadai. And who are the relishers? Who are the tasters of the Leela of Radha and Krishna? Actually the Sakis. But especially the Manjaris. They're the ones who taste it. So they're the beginning, the middle and the end of Krishna Leela. Actually Radha Krishna Leela is really all Sakis Leela. This is a fact. This is why Ramananda Rai told to Mahaprabhu, Vibharapi Sukarupa, Swapikashopi Bhava, Shanamapi Nahirada, Krishna yo yarate swa, Pravahati Rasa Pushtim, Chid Vibhuti Ivesha, Shrayatana Padamasam, Kasakinam Rasagya. Ramananda Rai, later this verse appeared in Govinda Lila Amrita of Krishna's Kaviraj. So, here Ramananda Rai is saying, Vibhu api sukharupa. Even though Radha Krishna's happiness is vibhu, it's all pervading, it's unlimited. Swapakasho pibhava. And it's swapakash, it's self-manifest. But still, know this one thing. Listen carefully, because it's shocking. Actually, that's just the first shock. There's going to be a few shocks today. So, Ramananda Rai is saying, Shanamapi nahirada Krishnayo yariteswa. That even though their happiness is unlimited and it's self-manifest, they cannot experience one drop of happiness without their Sakis. They cannot experience one drop, even for sun. Shanamapi nahirada Krishnayo. Not even for a second can Radha and Krishna experience happiness without their Sakis. Pravahati rasapushtim chid vibhuti ivesha. So he's giving an example. Lord Narayan is in Vaikuntha, and around him he's surrounded by so many personalities, and these personalities are the embodiments of his siddhis, his mystic powers. Anima, Lagima, Mahima, all the mystic powers and all of his opulences personified surround him. Lakshmi Devi herself is his three, Bhu and Leela. Three different aspects of Lakshmi and so on. So Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha is surrounded by these persons who are all the embodiments of his mystic opulences. So in the same way, the Sakis are the embodiments of the mystic opulences of Radha Krishna's love. So they're called Chid Vibhuti. They are the Chid Vibhuti. Transcendental conscious Vibhuti means mystic opulences of the love of Radha and Krishna. And therefore Ramananda Rai is asking this question. Shrayatana padamasam kasakinam rasagya. If there's which person who is rasagya, who knows rasa, would not take shelter of those Sakis? If you know rasa, where do you go? Right to their lotus feet. That's where you go. Sri Rupa Manjari Pada Sahi Mora Sampada Sahi Mora Pajana Pujan Sahi Mora Pranadana. The lotus feet of those Sakis, especially Rupa Manjari, they're my treasure, they're my pran, they're my decoration, they're my dharma, my karma, my everything. So a rasic person will take shelter of those Sakis. So in Krishna Lila, it all starts with the Sakis of Radhika. The first wave of love comes in her Sakis. And they tell her, oh, you should write a love letter to Krishna. And they bring her a lotus leaf and some kumkum to write a love letter to Krishna. It's the Sakis who are initiating. They're the ones starting all the pastimes. And Radhika is, even though we know that Radhika is the Purna Shakti and she's kind of in control of everything, but in the Leela she's not. Among the 25 qualities of Radhika, one is Saki Prayita Vashaha. She's under the control of the love of her friends. Especially Lalita, because Lalita's older. She's more experienced. She's more worldly. She can give her good advice. She's like 27 days older. And Radhika's also a bit afraid to disobey her as well, because she's such a pragalba, she has a very forceful, domineering personality, but for Radhika's own good. It's just out of pure love. So it's the Sakis that, oh, Radhika, write a letter, look, here's a lotus leaf, here's some kumkum. And then they take and they deliver it to, they're the ones making all the arrangements. Right? So the first wave of love comes in the Sakis. And then when they bring Radhika to meet with Krishna, the next wave of love comes in the Radhika. And she's very reluctant. She wants to meet with him, but there's dharma and lokalaja, the fear of society and everything. But somehow or other, her Sakis are bringing her by force. The whole way she's complaining. Lalita's taking her by the hand. Oh, Saki, where are you taking me? And the whole way she's complaining. Gata prayam shayam charita parisanki gurujana parivadas tungo jagati saralaham kulavati vayasas te lola shakala pasupali suridaso tada namram yache rahasi Saki sancharaya namam. Oh Saki, where you take? I bow down, please don't take me there. I planned one class, but now something else is coming out. So Radhika said, look, listen to me. Gata prayam shayam. It's already become evening. That's a big thing, because in Vedic culture, a young girl can't she can't be out of the house and walking around after sunset. She'll never be allowed in the house again. You know the story of the washerman and in the Ram Leela? The wife came back after the sun had set and he's like, that's it, I'm not letting you in. So Radharani says, Gata prayam shayam. The sun is about to set and you're taking me away from the house. Charita parisanki gurujana. And Charita, what about my character? My Gurujan, they'll all have doubts about my character. Suspicion will be cast upon me. And you know what people are like, right? Parivadas tungo jagati. Parivadas tungo jagati means, you know what people are like in the village? They like gossip. They like to, if there's a scandal, it spreads like wildfire. Saralaham kulavati. And I'm Saralaham, I'm a very simple person. If all the accusations come, I won't be able to defend myself against them. And what's more, kulavati, I'm from a dynasty, a prestigious dynasty. For generations, the reputation of every woman in my dynasty was spotless. I have to think of my ancestors. And what's more, I know you and these other girls. You're all very restless and fickle. And I know you have a friendship with that boy. So if you take me somewhere, there's no telling what will happen. So tada namram yache rahasi Saki na sanchayati mam. Oh Lalita, I'm bowing down to you. Please don't take me. Like this. And Lalita's pulling her by the hand and says, please don't take me, but Radharani is walking because actually she wants to meet with Krishna. This is the nature of Braj. We were discussing this yesterday. In her heart she wants to meet with him, but outwardly she's saying all these things and there's still some fear of the society. And then when they arrive there, and then Radhika, from far away, she sees Krishna. Then she says to her Sakhi, Chalakshi Guru Lokata Spurata Tavad Antabhayam Kulastitiralam Chami Manasi Tavad Unmilati Chalan Makara Kundala Spurata Pulla Gandastalam Nayavad Aparokshatamidam Upaiti Hanta Shaitan Upaiti Vaktrambujam. Radharani says that I have the fear. I have fear of my Gurujan, of my seniors, and my heart trembles. And I deliberate upon the reputation of my dynasty. But now, the moment I saw the face of Krishna with his dangling makara earrings, which are sparkling with light and shedding the reflections on his cheeks, which are a little bit inflated because he's smiling and chewing pan. And when I see his smiling cheeks and his chewing pan and the reflections of his earrings, then at once I think, to hell with my Gurujan and my dynasty and everything. So the first wave of love comes in the Sakhis, and they bring Radhi to Krishna. And when she arrives, all bets are off. Forget dharma, forget this, everything. She doesn't even know if it's day or night, or if she's awake or dreaming. She's just in so much bliss to see him. So she becomes so happy, and she becomes somewhat submissive towards Krishna. And the moment Radhika becomes a little bit submissive, then the next wave of love comes in Krishna. And he becomes completely naughty. And he went, what will happen if I pull her choli? So then Krishna tries to touch her. So the next wave of ecstasy, the next wave of loving Krishna, he tries to do or say something naughty. And then the next moment, when all the Sakhis see Krishna's notorious and unacceptable behavior, they all raise their eyebrows and look at each other with big eyes. Oh, did you see what he did? It's so terrible. That's the fourth wave of love. The Sakhis, they're all complaining, but actually that's why they brought Radhika there. They're tasting, they're relishing. They're relishing the misbehavior, the mischief of Shri Krishna. So these are the Sakhis. Sakhi bina e lila pushti nahi hai. Sakhi lila vistariya sakhya. The Sakhis, they pushti, they nourish the lila, and vistariya means they expand the lila. Radharani will say to Vishaka, "Oh Vishaka, first we was doing the swinging lila, but Krishna made the swing so high that I was afraid I would fall off and I had to hold on to him. So he defeated me in this lila. Then we did holy lila, and he covered me from head to toe in colors, and he defeated me in this lila. So then we went into the water of Radhakund and washed off all the colors into the water, became so fragrant. And then he was splashing me, and he defeated me in that. So Krishna keeps winning, and now he's becoming proud. Why? Because these are all power games. These are power games, and he's very strong. So Vishaka, just come up with an idea. Think of a game that requires some brains, because he's just a coward boy. He only knows how to graze cows. If you think of a game that requires some brains, we can dispatch his pride and finally defeat him. So then Vishaka thinks, I know just the thing, and she goes and she brings the chowpar, the dice game. Because in dice game needs some tactics and some intelligence. It's not just for people who chase cows around with a stick. Yeah. So that means how the Sakhis they're the link between one Leela and the next. What Leela will do next? We'll swim next? Or should we dance next? Should we eat next? Should we gamble next? What pastime? The Sakhis do they expand the pastimes by making the link from place to place. From place to place and from Leela to Leela, from Vilas to Vilas. And in the end, the Radha Krishna are meeting and relishing each other, but it's the Sakhis who are Radha Krishna not relishing the Leela of Radha Krishna. The Sakhis are relishing the Leela of Radha and Krishna. Understand? So they are the tasters. How wonderful it is. So see, Ramananda, right now, I'll come back to my script. Excuse me. Sometimes I space out and get distracted. Vikshipta chitta. Yeah. So, Ramanandra, he's saying, because we're discussing chitta brittis, the subject of chitta britti, so he's saying, Krishna Lila Mano Britti Sakya Shapash, Radharani's own chitta brittis, her own psychological tendencies have assumed forms, and they're running here and there, and this is called Krishna Lila. So without understanding the basic things, we cannot understand what our acharyas are saying about the higher things. Let's move on to something else, another application. Always pay attention, have a very strong foundation, otherwise you cannot enter into the higher topics. There you see, Radhika's Manobrittis are all around her. Some are singing, some are dancing, some are playing musical instruments. Someone can say that Sita Devi, today is also the appearance day of Sita Devi, so I will say something about her. Some people say that Sita Devi, she has real love, right? And Lord Ram has real love because Lord Ram, he has ekapatni brat. He has a vow to have only one wife. He cannot show interest in anyone else. Even if Sapurnaka, the sister of Ravan, will come and approach him and say, oh, you are so handsome, meet with me. He said, no. Oh, look, you should meet with me, really. Are you not curious? You only know human ladies. I am a Rakshasi. You've never met with a Rakshasi. If you meet with a Rakshasi, you'll never go back to the human girls. And she was trying to seduce him. Lord Ram is ekapatni vrat. What? But people say, but Krishna, he has so many beloveds. So his love is not so good like Lord Ram. But this is not true. Why? Krishna also has one beloved, Radhika. And all the gopis are all Radhika's bhavs. Right? All the gopis are Radhika's bhavs. He only loves them because they're portions of Radhika's bhavs. He loves Radhika. And the only reason he loves the others, because there are portions of Radhika's bhavs in them. Now, let's come to another subject. Very fascinating. Here in the Vishnu Purana, it is said, Hladini Sandini Sambit Tvaikat Sarva Sangstita To Hladap Tapa Kuri Mishra Twaino Guna Varjite. Very famous verse. Comes several times in the conversations in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So here it's described that in Krishna there are no gunas. The gunas cause lada, material happiness, and tapa, misery, and mishra, mixed happiness and suffering as well. This is what the gunas do. But none of this is in Krishna. What is in Krishna? Ladini, Sandini, Sambit. Sandini is the existence potency. The vritti, the function of spiritual existence. So spiritual existence, that means the dham, the dust, the mountains, the trees, the river, they're all a manifestation of Sandini. The ornaments, Krishna's seat, the earrings, his cloth, it's all Sandini. No, not only that, all the bodies, all the spiritual bodies of his mother, his father, and all of his consorts, all the bodies are manifestation of Sandini because it's spiritual, eternal existence. Yeah. Then you have Samvit. So everything there is conscious. So the Samvit gives awareness. And then there is Ladini. Ladini gives the aswad, the ability to taste, the pleasure, the happiness, and that ananda, that joy is actually Sevananda. Premananda and Sevananda. So these are the three vrittis of the Krishna's ek. He has one spiritual energy, but it has three vrittis, three functions. So it goes by the name of Sandini. What does Sandini mean? What type of existence? Eternal spiritual existence. Sat. And what is Samvit? Yes. Awareness, knowledge, consciousness. And Hladini is? Bliss. Yeah, the bliss, the Ananda. Ananda Anksa Hladini. Okay, now, This you all know, quite basic. Let's go a little further. Okay, before I come to that, it needs a little introduction. Let's see, let's stay on here. Now, you know, Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma Prema Suyangsu Samyavak. That Bhav is Shuddha Sattva means Samvit. Visheshatma means Hladini, Vritti. These two together, from the hearts of the eternal associates, descend into our chitta. Ruchi bis chitta masranya, and cause the chitta to melt. We just sang the song Jai Jai Sundara Nanda Kumar. In the last line, what did Rupa Goswami say? Nija jana bala bhajan suritsanatana chitta vihara avata. Jaya Jaya Sundar Sundarananda Kumar. See, Krishna, Chitta Vihara Avata, he descends and performs pastimes in your chitta. He's describing this. So, when the chitta melts due to the appearance of Samvita and Hladini, now you enter into the stage of Bhav. And when this Bhav, Samyan Masritnita Swanto Mamata Tishayankita, when Bhav melts the heart even more, and the sentiment becomes infused with mamata atishai. That means excessive possessiveness. You are mine. Krishna, you are mine. Then Bhav becomes Prem. Right? So what are the characteristics of Prem? Sarvata dongsaraita satipi dongsakarne. Tad bhava bandhana, you know, sa prema parikirtita. The characteristics of Prem are this, that there's a relationship, a bondage of love which is so strong that even though all the causes may be present to break the relationship, but the relationship is unbreakable. That's called love. That's called love. Rupa Goswami gives some examples, just like, let's take Subhadra. Subhadra is Krishna's sister, and she has a son. Who's the son of Subhadra? Abhimanyu, yes. So after the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna comes back, Arjun comes back, Kritavarma, Kripacharya, and other than that, practically everyone, and the other four Pandavas, but practically everyone else was killed, including Abhimanyu. So Krishna comes back from the battle of Kurukshetra and meets with his sister Subhadra. And her son has died. Her son has died on this battlefield. And she's a resident of Dwarka, so she knows that Krishna is God. He's God, he's Ishvara. Not even a blade of grass can move without the will of Ishvara. So in one sense, he's kind of responsible, right? She's meeting with her brother, but he's also God, and he can control. He could have saved her son, but her son was cruelly murdered by so many. Shakuni and Karna and Duryodhana and Dushasana all surrounded him, completely against Dharma. It was completely unfair. Krishna could have stopped it, but he allowed it to happen. And now Subhadra meets with her brother, and she loves him. This is Prem. Right? You understand? Prem is that love. All the causes for it to be broken are there, but it's indestructible. It's never broken. That's love. Try to have such a relationship with your Gurudev. Anything can happen. So many things may happen. This may happen, that may happen, and as it does, life comes at you fast. But don't let anything be an excuse to not serve Gurudev. Never give up. That is Prem. Indestructible. Prem is not I love you when the sun shines. Prem is when everything is breaking the relationship from all sides, but it's untouched, unscathed, not a scratch. Actually, it increases. This is love. Another example is Chandravali. Chandravali loves Krishna, but in all the pastimes, she always ends up coming in second place. She always gets the participation trophy, right? She's never number one, and she'll never be number one. But she still loves Krishna. It doesn't matter, she loves him. This is Prem. And this Samvit and Ladini, when it becomes more intense, what does Prem become? Not yet, you jumped over about 7 stages. You're right, but don't go too fast. It becomes Sneha. Becomes Sneha. Sneha means affection. Now, what's the difference between Prem and Sneha? In Sneha, there's a great feeling of nourishing. That this person I love can't take care of himself. I need to help and make all arrangements. So Sneha is very prominent in Vatsalya Bhav. That's how parents feel about their children. Gurudev said that's how Bhaktivinoda Thakur felt about Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was so qualified, but because he has so much affection for him, he was thinking, what will happen to my son? He dropped out of college, right? He was studying at the University of Calcutta. He dropped out of college, think the professors couldn't teach him anything. So then he gets a job with becoming the tutor for the son of the king of Kasim Bazar. Sorry, the king of Tripur. And he's the tutor of his son. After a few days, the son of the king is wearing kantimala and tilak. And then the queen comes to her husband and says, we've got to get rid of this tutor. Because this tutor, he'll make our son into a sadhu. Before we know it, he'll leave home and we'll never see him again. So then he loses that job. So he dropped out of college, he lost one job, he lost another job. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was really, what will happen to my son? So, okay, I'll give you a piece of land in Mayapur, just sit there and chant. So he sat there and chanted 3 lakhs Harinam for 10 years. Oh, and then he manifested our Gaudiya Mat. So this is, Gurudev said also about Param Gurudev. You see, though our Gurudev and Srila Trivikrama and Srila Vaman Maharaj, they're so qualified, but out of parental love, our Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Prakash, was worried about them. What will happen in the future? When they were building Devananda Gaudiya Mat, he told Gurudev, he said, now I am preaching, but when I am gone in the future, what will happen with you? I don't know. So I think you should not use cement in the construction, just use mud. Because if it all falls apart in the future, at least you can take it apart and sell the bricks. Bhakti Prakash said this to Gurudev when he was young. So it didn't fall apart, it went great, they're so qualified. But it's the nature of Sneha, understand? The affection makes you see in that way. So Madhya Yashoda always feels like that. And the gopis also, in their affection for Krishna, think he doesn't know what's good for him. We'll make all arrangements. And Sneha makes the heart melt even more, and it's characterized that when the heart completely melts, then it comes out of the eyes in the form of uncontrollable flow of tears. And the tears are just flowing like pearls on a necklace. You know, when you cry, one tear comes, and then, a few inches behind that, the other tear comes. But when this Sneha comes, just like pearls in a necklace, they're all touching each other. The tears are coming, like each one is touching each other. This is Sneha, affection. And Sneha Utkristata, when Sneha becomes super excellent, then what does it become? Man. It becomes man. Bhav, Prem, Sneha, Man. It becomes Man. That means when affection becomes super excellent, it intensifies, it takes on a crooked nature. And sambhamyata, adakshina bhav, that's insubmissive mood manifests. And avahita bhav, the heart becomes crooked and the feelings become hidden. So that is the next level in the sthayi bhav. We're discussing what? Samvit and Ladini, how they intensify through stages. So then it becomes man. The love becomes crooked. It starts to be the opposite of what it seems to be. That's called a prem vivarta. Gurudev gives the example. If you're watching a wheel, you see the spokes on the wheel. Right? Nowadays, cars don't have spokes, but in the old days, the sports cars had very nice chrome spokes. Huh? And as the wheels are going around, you see the spokes going around. But when it gets to a certain speed, it looks like they're slowing down and then going back in the opposite direction. So when prem becomes sneha and then man, the prem becomes so intense, it turns and it seems the opposite of love. And that is called man. So give an example how sneha turns into man. Rupa Goswami Pad said one day, Radharani was waiting in a kunj for Krishna to come. And when Krishna was arriving, she saw him and her heart just melted with sneha. And tears were flowing from her eyes. And Sri Krishna approached her. And then as he approached, the love became more intense and it turned into man. And so now she's hiding her feelings. And she says, she greets Krishna with the words, "Oh, why did you come here with these cows? The dust's gone in my eyes." You know, Chandravali will stand up and bow down and offer him a seat and be respectful. As if Krishna approaches Radhika, he immediately gets it. Boom. This is the crookedness of love. Oh, why did you come with these cows? The dust came in my eyes. Then Krishna says, "Oh my Prem Prayojan, oh my sweetheart, more dear to me than my own pran, come here." And he holds her face and blows cool air on her eyes. And Radhika says, Stop. What benefit will I get from your fake love?" This is the example of the appearance of sneha and then sneha turning into man. And Krishna loves it because he can understand. He's not seeing the superficial. If you deal with someone like this, they'll say, "Oh, you are just a stroppy person in a bad mood." But Krishna is rasik and Radhika's love is pure, so he can relish all of these things. Now what happens when sneha becomes more intense? Becomes pranay. And actually, for the queens of Dwarka, the man may become pranay, but for the gopis, usually pranay comes first, and then man. Because pranay means the vishwas, confidence. It's a confidence in the other person because you feel one with them. It's a feeling that my body and your body are one, my mind and your mind are one, my pran and your pran are one, my heart and your heart are one. And it gives such a great confidence. So there's no let us say, the coolness of etiquette is gone away. One behaves in a very familiar way. The classic example that Rupa Goswami gives is one day Krishna was coming back from taking the cows to graze in the forest. As he was returning, Yogendra Bandhana Srinandanandana, the Yogindras, the great demigods, appeared in the sky and they began offering prayers to Krishna. And the cowherd boys, like Subal, instead of going, "Oh, they're all saying he's God. Amazing. Krishna's God." Then all the demigods are praising him and Subal's thinking, "Oh, Krishna, you got some dust on your peacock feather, come here." And he starts flicking the dust off Krishna's peacock feather. No etiquette at all. So this is an example of pranay, but in Madhurya Rasa, it's much, much more intense. So for the queens of Dwarka, they have man first and then pranay. So if Satyabhama, actually most of the queens, they don't have a very strong man. Only Satyabhama and Lakshmana, because they have Madhu Sneha. So the others, they can have some man, but it's very slight. It's called sometimes like Bhama Gandha, just a fragrance of insubmissiveness, but nothing serious. But Satyabhama can sometimes become quite feisty, and just leave the palace and go to Kopabhavan, to the anger room, throw off all her ornaments and lie on the ground, hissing like a snake. So she can get really upset. But if Krishna will send a message by her maidservant, "Oh, tell that foolish daughter of Satyajit to come back at once. Otherwise she should get out of my palace." Then she'll panic and get dressed again and come back in a humble mood. Why? Because her man isn't based on pranay. It's not based on confidence. So if Krishna will sometimes he'll come to her and try to pacify her, but if he takes a more firm stance, she'll panic and become submissive again. Because her man is first, then pranay. But the gopis, they have pranay first, mainly, confidence. So when they become angry and they act contrary to Krishna, then Krishna can say anything. Krishna can't say, oh, you should get out of my kunj. They say, what do you mean your kunj? This is my kunj. You get out. So when the man is based on pranay, it can be very strong. And Krishna cannot break it, then he'll need some help. Who can help him? You have to take shelter of the Sakhis, especially you have to take shelter of the Manjaris. This is why Krishna loves them so much. Because at that time when Radhika is inaccessible, his only hope is to take shelter of the Manjaris. Please help me. He begs them with tears in his eyes. Yat kinkurishu bahusha kalukakavani nityam parasya purishasya shikandamule tasya kadara sadine brishubhanujas tatkeli kunja babanangana majanisham. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati, he's saying that, if only I could become one stick in the broom that the Sakhis used to sweep the kunj of Radhika. Because that place is so glorious that even Parampurush, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he goes with tears in his eyes and he's offering prayers and doing parikrama of the maidservants of Radhika to try to melt their heart and persuade them to arrange his meeting with her when she becomes upset. So how glorious that. This was one of Srila Gurudev's favorite verses. Yat kinkarishu bahusha kaluka kavani. Because ultimately, it's the glories of Radhika's love. Because if Krishna is crying and offering prayers to the Manjaris, then kim uta, then how much greater is the love of Radhika? So it's that type of kaimutik nyai expression of kim uta. That figure of speech in English, or let us say Italian, it's called a fortiori. A fortiori. Figure of speech. So, where are we? Yes. Pranay. So pranay, it comes after man, but for gopis it very often comes before man. And so their man can be very strong. What's the characteristic of pranay? Once Krishna came and met with Radhika in a kunj. It was a very tender and intimate moment. And Sri Krishna was pouring out his heart. He said, Prayangste ham tvomapi cha mama prayasiti pravadas tvam te pranam aham iti taba smiti hanta pralapa tvam me te sham aham iti tat touch no sadhu radhe vyavaharo now nahi sumuchito yushma dasmad prayogaha. It's from Kavikarnapu's Alanka Kaustuba. Krishna said, if, O Radhika, if I say, you are my beloved and I am your lover, you are my priya and I am your priya. If I say this, then this is just priyangste ham tvamapichamama prayasiti prabad. This is just a topic of conversation, but it is superficial. If I will say, Tvam te pran, you are my pran, and I am your pran. This is just pralap. This is the nonsensical, idle prattle. And if I will say, Tvam te me syat, I am yours and you are mine. Even this is not appropriate. So why are all these words? I am your beloved and you are my beloved, or you are my pran and I am your pran, or I am yours and you are mine. Why are all these words insufficient? O Radhika, because in the matter of our love, even the pronouns I and you are not applicable. It comes back to the verse we said earlier, where Radhika said, oh, we are two bodies, but actually we are one heart. So it's improper. It's anuchit to even use the word I and you in our regard. So what is this? Is Krishna expressing. He's experiencing his prem became sneha, mat, and became pranay. And he's not just speaking that, just making it up like some. He's actually realizing this. And that nectar of his experience of pranay with Radhika is coming out. You know, Radha Krishna pranaya vikriti ladini shakti rasmat. Sri Radhaya pranaya mahima kidrishovana. Understanding? In the explanation of the 3 reasons why Krishna appeared as Mahaprabhu. Sri Radhaya pranaya mahima. Pranay is used. So if pranay becomes more developed, if the love becomes more intense, then what does it become? Everyone says Mahabhav every time. Yes, correct. Correct. Very good. Very good. Come with me to Miami. It becomes rag. Do you know what rag is? Rag is dukam apyadikam chitte ragenaiva sukenattvena rajyate. Dukam apyadikam. Duk means suffering. What kind of suffering? Apyadikam, adikam. Excessive suffering, intense suffering. Sukatvenaiva rajyate. It becomes happiness. Can you imagine if you have a white cloth and you have a bucket of dye and you dip the white cloth in the red dye, and then the red dye just dyes the whole cloth. All the brahmacharis know, because they do that, you know, every 10 years when they buy a new dhoti. So what happens? Rajyate, that means the cloth. It was one color, but it becomes pervaded by a completely different color. So now imagine here, dukam apyadikam chitte. Remember, what's the subject here? The citta. Imagine your whole citta, it's filled with duk, suffering. And then suddenly, it becomes completely dyed in another emotion, becomes pervaded with happiness. So, that means, and also vice versa, that means that sometimes if the gopis are in a position of extreme suffering, but that suffering affords them the chance to serve Krishna, suffering turns into joy. And at the same time, if they're in a position which would ordinarily be a cause of joy, but it means that they'll be deprived of Krishna's service, that source of joy becomes a source of great suffering. So the state of love, which is so intense, it transforms happiness into distress and distress into happiness, is called Ragaha. Understand? Very beautiful. Just like the gopis, when they were young, they already fell in love with Krishna, but they never had a chance to meet him. And in Vedic culture, when the parents arrange the marriage of a young girl and they tell her, oh, we've found a prospective husband for you, she's so happy. But when the gopis' parents come and tell them, we've got great news, we've found a husband for you, and then they smile, and it's just burning, because their rag turns what should be joyful into complete pain, like poison. And at the same time, the example is given that one day Radhika, she was at Govardhan, and it was the middle of the summer, and the sun was blazing hot, and the stones on the top of Govardhan were very sharp, and they were hot as fire, and Radhika had bare feet, and she could hear at the distance in the valley Krishna was playing his flute, and she wanted to see him, but from where she was she couldn't see him, and with her soft lotus feet, bare feet, she ran up on the hot sharp stones to the top of Govardhan, and even though her feet were being burnt, and she has a spiritual body, so Yogamaya protects her, but it would be uncomfortable for her feet there, but because she saw Krishna in the distance, so the heat of the sun became cool, the heat of the rocks became cool, the sharp stones became like butter, because it afforded her a chance to see her pran, Pranavalab Shri Krishna in the valley far away. So this is the example of rag, the love that turns pain into happiness. Now, if rag becomes more intense, then what happens?
Anurag.
Yes, it turns into anurag. It turns into anurag. So what is anurag? It's very interesting because in English we have a word love, and then maybe we can say affection, but now we've run out of words. But in Sanskrit we have rati, bhav, prem, sneha, man, pranaya, rag, anurag, rudabhav, adhirudabhav, modan, mohan, madan, and so many subdivisions also within them. I'm just giving a little overview. There are many, many categories in each stage, but I'm trying to come to the next verse on the slides before my flight leaves. So, like us, we have one word for snow. We just have one word, snow. But the Eskimos, they have about 25 words for snow. Because they live there, and for them there's all different types of snow. Soft snow, hard snow, flaky snow, whatever. I'm not expert in snow, but the Eskimos, they have a lot of words for that, because that's their whole life. So in the same way, our acharyas, because they're rasik, they're the connoisseurs in the world of ras, in the world of love. They have so many words for all the different types of love. And each one, this is what we're discussing, is called the Krampakash. That means the sequential steps of the manifestation of the Sthayi Bhav, the foundational ecstasy. And that foundational ecstasy mixes with the other bhavs, Vibhav, Anubhav, Satvika Bhav, Vyabhachara Bhav, and so on. And that makes rasa. So the next type of love is called anurag. I first heard the explanation of these stages of love from Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj. In 1992. Because actually all these stages, they're described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. You can see in Sanatan Shiksha and a few other places, but mainly in Sanatan Shiksha. So, anurag, it means sadanu bhutam apiyaha kuryan nava priyam rago bhavan nava navaha sanuraga utiyate. That love, which the love itself is experienced as newer and newer at every moment, as if I've never experienced anything like this in my life. And the object of love is also experienced as newer and newer at every moment. That is anurag. And that's why when Radha Krishna meet, they feel like it's pratama samagama, as if it's the first time. In fact, their meeting is so fresh that they don't even recognize each other when anurag appears. If they're in Prem, Sneha, Man, then Krishna's there or Radhika's over there. But if anurag is there, when they see each other, it's such a new experience that they don't even recognize each other. Asakrid aksakrid echa ka chamatkara vidya mama rasala haribis tarshamantas tanoti vidita mahayaseyam vyarita pangalila madarema paripaha kapi kalyanavapi. Once Krishna, he was walking through Vrindavan, and then he saw something. He saw something. And he said, Asakrid Esha Ka Chamaskara Vidya. What is that? What is that? It seems to be Chamatkara Vidya. If there is such a thing as Vidya means science and Chamatkara means amazement. So if there were a science of amazement, that would be called Chamatkara Vidya. He's saying, Ka Chamatkara Vidya. What am I looking at? Is that the science of amazement personified in a human form? Asakrit Esha Ka Chamatkara Vidya. Mama Rasala Haribi. When I look at whatever this is, whoever this is, this embodiment of the science of amazement, then all I can say is, Mama rasa laharibi. That I can feel waves of ras. One wave of ras is washing over me after another. This is what darshan means. Like we stand in front, we have darshan of Radharani. But this is like, actually not darshan. This is darshan. Krishna, look, what is that? Never seen it before. And waves of amazement are washing over me. Now, waves of rasa. So usually if you taste rasa, oh, that's nice. But Krishna is saying, Mama rasa laharibi tarsham as antas tanoti. As I drink each wave of beauty and amazement coming from whoever or whatever that is, instead of my thirst being quenched, each wave is making me more thirsty than the previous wave. Mama rasala haribis tarsham antastanot, my inner tarsha, my inner thirst. The more I taste it, the more I become thirsty. This is darshan of Radhika. Because Krishna has she has anurag for him and he has anurag for her. And he's trying to figure out, he's having the Sanchari Bhava Vitarka. Vitarka means conjecture. Is it like this or is it like that? Is it like this? And then he has another Sanchari Bhava that is called Mati. When you decide, you understand what it is. So Krishna, what is it? What is it? Then he decides. Viditam ahaha. Ahaha. It's a Sanskrit word. Ahaha. Do you know what ahaha means in Sanskrit? It means aha. Yeah. Ahaha. Viditam ahaha seham. Aha, viditam. Now I know what it is. I tell you what it is. Do you know what kalyan is? Kalyan means auspiciousness. Just like when you meet a Vaishnava, your life was kind of like inauspicious and just going into a dark place of tragedy. There are so many tears in this world, no one can count them. But when we come in the association of Vaishnava, everything starts to become auspicious. Our life changes. We come out of the gunas. We engage in the transcendental activities that make a very bright, wonderful future for us. So when Krishna saw whatever it was, he thought, this is not just something auspicious. This is like I'm looking at Kapi Kalyanavap. I'm looking at a lake, a whole deep, deep lake of auspiciousness. Now I know my life will change and all my desires are going to be fulfilled. And just as a lake can have many streams flowing from it, so this lake, I'm seeing a lake of auspiciousness and it's overflowing. And that auspiciousness is overflowing through the eyes of this being when she looks at me. Viditam ahahaseham vyarita pangalila. This being has a pastime of doing apanga, glancing at me, and currents of sweetness are coming from her eyes. And she's like a lake of auspiciousness, which will change my life and fulfill all my desires. But he still doesn't know who it is. This is anurag. See, it's easy to say the word love. And when we hear the definition of prem, we think, wow, that's the last thing. There's nothing higher than this. But that's just the beginning. Prem, sneha, man, pranaya, rag, now anurag. There's a village in Navadvip, in Ritudvip, called Kobala. Kobla. On the map it's called Kobla. But Gurudev said it comes from the Sanskrit Kobala. It means, who's that boy? It's the location where the Radhakund of Navadvip is. And so the village called Kobla, because we become Kaha Bala, becomes Kobala. Who's that boy? Because Radhika in her anurag, she sees Krishna and who's that boy? So this is anurag. And when anurag just comes to its highest point, now we come to the next verse. I'm feeling kind of insufficient because we're not giving enough time to each one, but just trying to give some hint of the stages. So now here, what comes after anurag? Let's ask Mahibharat Prabhu. No, you got it right the first time. Yes, Bhav, yes. That's why I asked you. Because every time I was asking the question, you said bhav. So I asked you this time, it would be right. Definitely right. So yes, now anurag becomes bhav. Now this bhav is also known as mahabhav. Why? Because there's the bhav that you get by doing your sadhana before prem, and then there's this bhav that comes after anurag. So it's called bhav, but we also call it mahabhav because it's the great one. So this is Rupa Goswami's definition of mahabhav. And if you hadn't listened to the 5-hour class on citta and prana and all of these things, there's absolutely no way of understanding what on earth this verse is about. So this is why I'm saying, don't neglect your basis. Try to understand the very basic things, and gradually they also they keep you in good stead that later the higher things will become comprehensible to us. Of course, the topic is very high. It cannot really be, one may understand it theoretically. And we're speaking it because this is our prayojan, this is our goal of life, this is our sadhya. What we are trying to attain by our sadhana and gradually attain prem and ultimately these things. So sometimes, even though I tortured you for like about 5 or 6 classes on very hard siddhanta, but sometimes we have to discuss also the prayojan, the goal, because that lights a fire in us to undergo the rigors of sadhana. Because we have to do a very intense sadhana if we want to attain our perfection. But if we don't have any idea of what that goal is and how wonderful it is, then we won't feel the conviction and the commitment to fully invest totally in our life to attain that goal. So that's why I'm discussing. But to actually realize it is it's a very high thing. One needs to really do deep bhajan. So this is the definition of bhav, mahabhav. Rupa Goswami saying, Anuraga swasambeda dasham prapa prakashita yavad ashraya britis chet bhava itta vidhiyate. So, if chet means if 3 conditions are fulfilled, then bhava ityabhidiyate, then love can be called bhav, mahabhav. So what are the 3 conditions? The first condition is this: anuraga swasambedya. Anurag, that's the previous level of love, has to attain a condition called swasambedya dasha. Swasambedya, you may have heard this, Gurudev writes some places in his books, Gurudev mentions this. Swasambedya dasha, the condition of swasambedya. Sam means completely, Vedya means known, Swa to itself, Dasha means the condition. So Anurag attains the condition of being completely known to itself. Well, what does that mean? It's very cryptic. I'll just leave it there for now, because I want to say the 3 conditions, then we'll come back and open it up in a way that you can have some idea. Then, the 3rd condition, prakashita. Prakashita means illuminated. And it especially means the manifestation not of 1 or 2 sattvic bhavs, like just some trembling or some tears, but even 5 sattvic bhavs in an inflamed condition. Udipta, the udipta state, because there are stages. Dumayit means just 1 sattvic bhav is coming very, very slightly. That's called the smoking stage. Right? So, yes, of course you have to give up smoking, but you should start smoking actually. Nainam galadashu dharaya. This verse is describing when the devotee starts smoking. That means that his sattvic bhavs are starting to smoke. The fire is coming. So he's having some trembling, some tears, maybe 1 or 2, just slightly. And he can control it as well. So when he feels the ecstasy coming and there's other people around, he hides it, that they can't see. But then Dumayit becomes dwalit, lit. Now it's not smoking, there's actually some flame coming. So now there's more sattvic bhavs are coming, and it's very hard to hide them. So Dumayit, dwalit, then dipta, now it's flaming. Now you can't hide it. Then it becomes udipta, intensely inflamed. So in Mahabhav means the sattvic bhavs, perhaps 5 at the same time, even, or more. Some sattvic bhavs are contrary to each other. So it may be 5, 6, 7, 8, and they're inflamed, udipta. And in Adiruddha Mahabhav it will become sudipta, even. So, when the person is prakashit, that means illuminated by the appearance of many sattvic bhavs at the same time, in a blazing state, that is called prakashita. Okay? Now the third condition for it to be called Mahabhav, if there is Swasamveda Dasha and if there are Prakashita, it will still not be Bhav unless Yavad Ashraya Britti. Yavad Ashraya Britti. Yavad Ashraya Britti has 2 prominent meanings. Yavad means as far as, in other words, to the fullest extent. To the fullest extent, the ashray has attained its function. So the ashray of anurag, which is the first word, the basis of anurag has attained its fullest extent. So what does that mean? It means this. What's the basis of anurag? The basis of anurag is rag, right? That was the mood that comes before. And rag is the state of love where that which is the cause of pain becomes pleasurable. So when the basis of anurag, that is rag, attains its fullest extent, that means that the most painful thing that could possibly exist has become the most pleasurable thing that could possibly exist. That's Yavad Ashray Britti. Understand? Nod your head if you understand what I said. Shake your head if you didn't understand. Yavad Ashray Britti means Yavad, to the fullest extent, the Ashray. The subject here is Anurag, the first word. So the basis of Anurag, that's the previous stage of love, Rag, has attained its fullest extent. In other words, Rag becomes Anurag before it attains its fullest extent. But when the basis comes to its fullest extent, that means the most painful thing in the entire universe becomes the source of the greatest pleasure. That is Yavad Ashray Britti. And at that point, Anurag turns into Bhav. Understand? So let's give the example. If we illustrate it, then it will become clear. The gopis are called Sumaryada. Sumaryada means they're very pious, religious village girls, and they strictly follow all dharma. So for a young woman from from a high aristocratic dynasty, for a young girl from a high aristocratic dynasty who's very fixed in dharma. Actually, let me just go off on a tangent just for a second, for the 108th time. It's auspicious. Just, coming from a fallen background in Kali Yuga, myself, it's difficult for such persons to understand what it means to be dharmic. To be a dharmic person means you must have been dharmic in many lifetimes, and you have these dharmic samskars where you're just naturally attracted to doing the right thing and not doing the wrong thing. It's not like you come into a situation of temptation and it's like, and you struggle to avoid. A dharmic person just sees something which is sinful or of low class, and they're repulsed because it's their nature to be repulsed against adharma because they have the dharmic samskars. So there's an example in Srimad Bhagavatam, you know the story of Dushyanta Maharaj? So Dushyanta Maharaj was traveling through the forest and he saw a beautiful woman and he became attracted to her. Who was it? Shakuntala. Right, Shakuntala. So he saw Shakuntala and he was so attracted to her and he began to speak to her in a beautiful way, in a very charming way, because he thought, I'll make her my queen. And he asked her Sakis, who is this girl? And they said, oh, she's the daughter of Kanva Rishi. She's the daughter of Kanva Rishi. Dushyanta Maharaj immediately said, no, she isn't. She's not the daughter of Kanva Rishi. Why? Kamba Rishi is a Brahmin and he's a Kshatriya. And because his samskars are so dharmic, he knows I can't be attracted to a Brahmin woman because she's of another caste and a higher caste. I can only be attracted to a Kshatriya. Can you imagine? That the samskars of Dharma are so strong that he knows that she can't be the daughter of Kamba Rishi, otherwise he wouldn't be attracted, because it would be against his Dharma to be attracted to a woman of another caste, especially of a higher caste. And so he's just sure, no, she's not the daughter of Kamba Rishi. It's amazing. So actually, she is the daughter of Kamba Rishi, but she was adopted. She was adopted. So she wasn't really the daughter of Kamba Rishi. Whose daughter was she? You know, there was a king named Vishvamitra, and he wanted to become a Brahmin. He was a Kshatriya, but he wanted to become a Brahmin. So he was doing hard austerities. And at that time, Indra became disturbed. Oh, he's going to take over my kingdom. So he sent an Apsara. He sent Urvashi. And Urvashi came and seduced him and compromised his integrity. And he fell down from his austerities. And they had a child. And of course, Urvashi disappeared. And then that child was Shakuntala. And so then he gave the girl to Kamba, and she was raised by Kamba Rishi. But at that time, Vishvamitra, he hadn't become perfect in his austerity. He hadn't become a Brahmin. So he was still a Kshatriya at that time. And so Dushanta Maharaj, he knew, oh, no, she cannot be how can I be attracted to her? So can you imagine having such sukriti, it's a karma sukriti, such piety and dharmic samskars, that you just automatically do the right thing in any circumstances. So how much the gopis, they're more than that, they're much more than that. So the gopis are called Sumaryada. Now for a young girl who's Sumaryada, very religious, never does the wrong thing, she comes from a dynasty of ancestors who never do the wrong thing, then just to have some suspicion about her character, that she's unchaste, that has a relationship with another man who's not her husband, that is worse than death. That pain is worse than being placed in the middle of a blazing fire. You see? But because the love of Krishna is so uncontrollable, the gopis come to that stage where, we discussed it earlier, as soon as I see him, I forget about my ancestors and everything. You see? That verse that we described before is actually that switch where the rag is becoming anurag, and then it's becoming mahabhav, because the rag, the most painful thing, suddenly just becomes ecstatic, and I can't stop myself. I'm going to go and please Krishna. You see? So that's how anurag turns into mahabhav. And this is why everywhere in the Bhagavatam you'll see things like, let's say Uddhava will say, Asam maho charana renu dusham mahamsam Brindavan ekimati gulmalatau shadimanam. I want to take birth as a blade of grass in Vrindavan. Why? So I can get the foot dust of the gopis. Why are they so great? Ya justya jam swajanam aya patam chahitwa beju mukunda padavim shruti bevi mritram. Because these gopis, they've given up swajan, their family, and Aryapat, they've given up the path of the Vedas just to please Krishna. So if you're from a Western sanskar and you think, oh yeah, giving up the path of Dharma and giving up your family, so what? People do it all the time. At the drop of a hat, just a whim. But these personalities are a different type of person. Understand? If Dushyanta Maharaj can't do anything wrong, just by his material sanskars, what to speak of the gopis, how pure and perfect they are. But the most painful thing, because they love Krishna so much, they become that pain, which is worse than death, worse than being in a blazing fire, just rajyate, becomes dyed with ecstasy, and I must please him. And that's the moment where anurag turns into mahabhav. Understand? So that is yavadashvai. So these are 3 conditions. We didn't really explain the first one. So I want to try to explain that now. Understand what Rupa Goswami has done, why we say Yan Kali Rupa Sharan. If Rupa Goswami hadn't appeared in this world, no one would know what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. We are discussing the teaching of Rupa Goswami. How deeply he went into the transcendental prem like no one else ever before. This is what Gurudev wants to give us. So we have to be in the association of Braj Rasik Rupanuga Vaishnavas. They'll hold our hand and bring us into this ocean, this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And in the ocean of Bhakti Ras, there's a blazing sapphire. Ujjwala Nilamani. That means blazing sapphire. So, is everyone on the same page? Yeah? You understand so far? Because we have to build on this a little bit. Let's go a little bit further. There's another meaning of Yavadashray Vritti, which is very, very important. We just explained the glories of the gopis, because they're Sumaryada, but their love can take them to Mahabhav, because the most painful thing becomes a source of happiness if it gives pleasure to Krishna. Right? And that's why the queens of Dwarka cannot control Krishna like the gopis. That's why the queens of Dwarka, their love only goes up to Anurag. They never experience Mahabhav, because their love is not so intense that it can, the most painful thing can be turned in happiness for the sake of Krishna. It's not possible for them. And so when we speak about the prema of the gopis and the prema of the queens of Dwarka, it's not comparable. The gopis are on completely another level. You know, Uddhav lives in Dwarka. He sees the queens every day. But he still left everything, and today he's doing bhajan as a blade of grass on the bank of Uddhav Kund, at Shamakuti. Once I asked Gurudev, there's so many blades of grass here, which one's Uddhav? I want to worship him. Do you know what he said? He said, every time Krishna comes to this world in the day of Lord Brahma, a different personality plays the role of Uddhav. And these are all Uddhavs from the different kalpas. So many Uddhavs from many different kalpas are all there as the blades of grass as Shamakut. It's just mind-boggling. Because it's described in Srimad Bhagavatam that one of the Vasus, there are 8 Vasus, and they appear in Krishna's Leela, and one of the Vasus enters into Uddhav. Just like Drona Vasu enters into Nanda Maharaj also. So, yes, where are we? Yes. So, we describe Yavadashray Vritti as another meaning, but we're not ready to understand that meaning there. To understand the other meaning of Yavadashray Vritti, which is very, very important, then one will have to understand the Swasamveda Dasha first, and the relationship between the 3 conditions. They're not like 3 arbitrary things, but they're intimately related to each other. So now I want to explain the meaning of the Swasamveda Dasha and how the 3 conditions are interrelated, and that will lead us to the second and most, for us we could say, most significant, important meaning of Yavadashray Vritti. Are you ready? Everyone concentrating? No sleepiness? No thinking about prasadam? Just try to bear with me for a few more minutes. So, now, look. Samvit and Ladini combined, they manifest Bhav, Prem, Snehaman. All of these stages are gradual intensifications of Samvit and Ladini. So if you actually examine the definitions, you'll see that all the definitions have 2 parts which indicate what Samvit is doing in that stage and what Ladini is doing in that stage. But essentially, let's see what Samvit Vritti does. Samvit brings consciousness, and it creates the consciousness of subject, yourself, and object, Krishna. Because from a metaphysical point of view, what is Krishna? He's the Advaya Gyan Tattva. He's the non-dual absolute truth. It's the plane of non-duality. So in the absolute plane of non-duality, how can you be you and he be he? You see? This is a plane of non-duality. There's a complete oneness. There's a oneness there. But it's achintya beda beda tattva. There's a oneness and a difference. And the difference is prominent to those who have bhakti. And the reason the difference is prominent for those who have bhakti is because Samvit Vritti creates the consciousness that I am this person and Krishna is that person. It creates the experience of subject and object in the non-dual reality. Otherwise, without the shelter of bhakti, you can only realize Brahman, where there's no subject and object. There's just boom, like that. Monotone, monotonous, emptiness, you see? So there can be oneness with variety because only through bhakti, because the Samvit Shakti makes the experience of I am the subject of my experience and Krishna is the object. He's the Vishai, the object of all rasa. So Samvit makes subject object. And Ladini, what does Ladini do? Ladini gives the joy of service. The joy of seva, the desire to serve. That's why, let's say, if you want to serve but you can't, only the feeling that you want to serve gives joy. Even if your service fails. Because Ladini is a seva-vritti. It even gives joy to Krishna. When Bali Maharaj was bound up by the snakes, he couldn't give pranam to Krishna, to Lord Vamandev. But in his heart he wanted to do, and Lord Vaman accepted that and felt pleasure, even though he didn't do it. Because the seva-vritti was there, the Ladini. I want to serve. Krishna seva bhasan, I want to serve. And it causes the heart to expand, so it's co-substantial with ananda, with joy. Because remember, what is sukh, what is happiness? It is the expansion of the heart. But because this Ladini comes from Krishna's Swarup, it's index linked to Krishna's Swarup. The more Krishna feels happiness, the more you feel happiness. It's not separate. It's actually not separate. The more Krishna feels happiness, the more you feel happiness. So it's exactly linked. Now, so this is Samvit and Ladini. Now, in the definition, the first condition was Swasamvedya Dasha, which means that Anurag attains the state of Swasamvedya Dasha. That means Anurag becomes completely known by itself. So it seems strange and doesn't seem to make sense. So see it in this way. It means that Anurag becomes the object of its own experience. Anurag becomes the object of its own experience. Still a little bit challenging. So let's see, just look at this. And what you have here is, Ladini means you're feeling joy. And Samvit gives you the experience that you are one individual and Krishna is your object. Now, Swasamvedya, now let's say that comes up to the stage of Anurag. Now how does it become Swasamvedya Dasha? This Anurag becomes the object of another Anurag who now becomes the subject. So look, here, there. This is, let's say, the bottom circle. Let's say the bottom circle, that's a gopi's personality. So they have joy and they're aware of themselves and they're aware of Krishna, the object of their love, by Samvit and Ladini. Anurag Swasambhadya means Anurag becomes the object of its own experience. Now put another Anurag above that, where Ladini is again the joy of service. The Samvit is a subject, but an ascended subject. Remember on the first day when we came here, we discussed Sakshitva. Right? Sakshitva. Well, what does Sakshitva mean? You have a conventional ego, like you think I am this person, but when you go into trance, then you rise up and your soul separates from your ego, and then from the vantage point of your soul, you see your own mind and body from above, and that state is called Sakshitva, the state of being in witnesshood. Right? You all remember that. So when a yogi is going into trance, then, or you, when you chant Hare Krishna, first be situated in Sakshitva. That means you know, you have an ego, an idea of who you are, but when the mind becomes calms down, then your soul no longer identifies with the citta vrittis, right? They become separate. And now you're a soul watching your own chitta vrittis, kind of like from above. And that's why it's called Rudra Bhav. Rudra means ascended to the next level. And this is why Krishna compares the gopis Mahabhav to a yogi going into trance. Tannavidan mayanu sanga badha diyaswa manamathastadedam yatasamado muniabditoye nadya pravishta eva nama rupe. Just before Krishna was leaving this world, and he was describing the love of gopis to Uddhav. We told one verse from that discussion, right? Ramena sarvadam, how Akrura had taken Krishna away. So after that, Krishna says this, Tannavidanam anurakta sanga baddha diyaswatman atastadedam. Krishna said, the gopis are so attached, so absorbed in me, that they forget themselves. They forget about this life and the next life. And just like yogis enter into samadhi, they go into a state of samadhi on me. And just like rivers enter the ocean, and now their names and forms are forgotten, so the gopis, they also enter into a state of samadhi. And that's one of the symptoms of Rudra Mahabhav. It is called Mohadya Bhavepi Atmadi Sarvam Vismaranam Sada. That the gopis, they totally forget everything. They're just so absorbed in loving Krishna and serving him. They forget, who am I, where am I, what am I doing, everything. So it's one of the symptoms of Mahabhav. So what happens here, just as a yogi, or just as you when you're chanting, you can come into the state of Shakshitva, the gopis' love is so intense that it makes them feel disembodied, and they're seeing their own, what would be for us our conventional ego and perceptions of the world from a higher position. And that's called Rudra Bhav. And so here you can see in the definition, Anurag becomes the object of its own experience. You've got Anurag here, and now you have another Anurag here, and this Anurag is looking at this Anurag. So sometimes it's stated like this. If there's a sentence, you can say, the gopi sees Krishna with love. So the gopi is the subject, Krishna is the object, and the love is the instrument. But when Swasamveda Dasha comes, then the anurag itself, the love itself, becomes the subject who is seeing the gopi, seeing Krishna, and seeing the love with love. It becomes the subject and the instrument and the object. All the cases become overtaken by love. So, is that clear? In Anurag, there are two things, Samvit and Ladini. Ladini is the joy of service, and Samvit is subject and object. So just as you or a yogi may go into a state of Sakshitva, where you rise above your conventional and empirical personality, and you're seeing yourself like a witness, a Sakshi. And then you realize, I'm not the doer. My body and senses, everything is going on, like by itself, and it's just in amazement. And you're seeing it from above. So you're the subject, and your whole mental brittis and everything become the object. So that's Swasamvedya Dasha. The love is so intense, they're not even doing meditation. In fact, they're singing and dancing with Krishna, but they go into such a state, like Krishna compares it to the samadhi of the yogis, and now there's another subject. But the object is their we don't want to say lower, because it's not really low, it's the gopis, right? So you can't speak about any lower or false ego or anything. But their previous ego and their experience of meeting with Krishna is the subject of that. So here, in the bottom, you have subject and object is experienced by Anurag. But when Rudra Mahabhav comes up, now the subject is there and the object is the whole bottom. Everything that's going on in the... Do you get it? You were busy walking around. Just if one person gets it, then I'll feel satisfied. Raise your hand if you got that, what I'm saying. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. Oh, success. Success, that's beautiful. So now when that happens, you see, if you don't understand the theory of what Rupa Goswami is saying, you cannot understand all the Rasa Katha. For example, when Krishna returned, in the Rasa Leela, Krishna disappeared. And all the gopis were searching for him. But they finally found Radharani unconscious. And they realized, Her prem is, our prem is like a firefly, and her prem is like an inferno. It's just a vast fire of love. And all the gopis, they had such adoration for Radharani. And when you adore something, you know what happens? Their bhav spreads out and it comes to you. And so once the gopis all realized that Radhika's love was the highest, then her love spread out among all the gopis, and the entire rasamandal of all gopis was lifted to a higher level. And then Krishna returned. Okay, now let's start the Rasalila again. Let's start it afresh. The first time it wasn't working. But now everyone's become unified by the Mahabhav of Radhika. And he began the Rasalila. So now, we should not really say that Krishna began the Rasalila. That's not what Shukadev Goswami said. Shukadev Goswami does not say that Krishna began the Rasalila. What does he say? Yes. He says, Rasutsavaha sampravrito gopi mandala manditaha yogeshwarena krishnena tasam madhye dvayor dvayo. He's saying, Rasutsavaha, the festival of Rasa, Sampravrito, began. He doesn't say Krishna began the Rasalila. He says the Rasalila began. That the Rasalila is the essence of Prem. In other words, if you are like a yogi and you go into Shakshitva, you realize that you are not the doer, that the gunas are doing everything. Or if you're a devotee, you realize that the Ladini and Samvit are doing everything. Right? So, but you're not the doer. So that Krishna is called Yogeshwara. He is the king of yogis. Because the bliss forces Krishna into a trance of prem. And all the gopis go into a trance of prem. And Yogeshwarena Krishnena. Krishna is in the instrumental case. Right? Like an instrument. If there's an instrument like a violin, the instrument is there, but the player is playing the instrument. So in the Rasalila, Krishna and the gopis are only instruments. And the prem is doing everything, and they're just above that, and in amazement, what's going on? This is Mahabhav. I'm trying to just touch some idea of what it is. So that's why Shukadev Goswami says, Rasutsavaha Sampra. Now he's saying the Rasalila began, and it seems like a simple thing. Maybe it's just poetry, and he just... No. Unless you understand the deep siddhanta of Rupa Goswami's Rasa theory, you cannot appreciate what Shukadev Goswami is actually saying. When the Rasalila really began, when everyone was in harmony, recognizing the superior position of Radhika, and they became the recipients of her overflowing prem. You see? So that is just a basic idea, because there's more to it. But just get that idea, what it means. Anuraga swasamvedya dasha. Anuraga attains swasamvedya dasha, because it kind of rises up above itself and is in a state of trance. And the anurag is experiencing the anurag. This anurag is experiencing that because it's Ruddha Bhav, ascended mood. Okay, so I think today we're not going to be able to go into Adiruddha is something else. And then Mohan and Madan is also, next time I come to Bhaja, perhaps we can discuss that on the last day after about 10 classes of very hard siddhanta. These things should not be approached, in a casual way. They should be approached very, very carefully, step by step, with the utmost honor. Srila Gurudev would say this. He would say that actually you are not qualified for Raganuga Bhakti. But if from far away you fold your hands and bow down thousands of times to Raganuga Bhakti with the greatest honor, then you can hear these things. Because it's the honor. By the honor, some mercy comes and gradually lifts us up, and one day we'll be qualified. So now we discussed the Anuraga Swasamvedya Dasha. Now let's move to Prakashita. Now remember, yesterday or the day before, there was a discussion of the Sattvic Bhavs. And this is the map that Gurudev has given in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. Have you seen this? Who's read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu of Gurudev? Yeah. So this is, I just did a screenshot of Gurudev's book here. So here Gurudev is showing how, when we discussed how Samvit and Ladini enter into your chittavriti, right? Into your mental quanta, and so you feel the transcendental emotions, but then that pran overflows into your senses, which are also the spreading of pran throughout the body. And when the bhakti flows in the pran and touches the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air and sky, it produces different effects. So we discussed when it touches earth, it makes you become stunned. Huh? Like when Radharani was playing her veena and Krishna was playing the flute, and then he just got stuck on one note. And then he ran out of breath. And then actually he dropped the flute. And he was going like that with no flute. Rupa Goswami Pad says, all glories to Krishna's silent flute playing. That's, for the Manjaris, that's the best flute playing. When he's already dropped the flute and he doesn't know. Because the Manjaris always relish Radhika's victory over him. So, sorry, I keep going off the subject. So, now, so when it touches the earth element, you become stunned. When it touches the water, then you cry. When it touches fire, then you perspire and you fade, you become pale. When it touches the akash, the ether, ka, then it makes the loss of consciousness, fainting. And when it touches the air, if it's mild, it makes standing of hairs. If it's moderate, it makes trembling. And if it's intense, it causes the faltering of the voice. Okay, so we all know this. But now, you know that the sattvic bhavs, that they're one of the ingredients, the 5 ingredients of rasa, right? You all know that. Sattvic bhavs are one of the 5 rasa samagris, the ingredients of rasa. Now the question comes, we understand in this world, you have a body made of 5 elements. And so the function of Vishuddha Sattva can touch the elements. But what about the gopis in the spiritual world, or anyone in the spiritual world for that matter? They don't have a body made of 5 elements. So how could the Sattvic bhavs be a rasa samagri? Understand? Do you understand the question? Yeah. How can the Sattvic bhavs be an ingredient of rasa in the spiritual world, which is full of rasa, when the people there don't have bodies made of the Pancha Mahabhut, the 5 material elements? Huh? So the answer is that all the bodies there are made of what? Come back to the beginning of the class. What are the bodies made of? Anyone? Which one? Samvit is consciousness. Wrong. Stand in the corner. Hold your ears and stand up and down with your tongue out. Yes, Sandini. Sandini is the existence potency. So in the spiritual world, their bodies are made of Sandini. It's the existence potency. And that existence potency manifests something which is like analogous to the 5 elements. You know, even Radharani in separation, she cries. She said, oh, let me just give up my body. And so the earth in my body will go and mix with the dust underneath Krishna's feet and make his feet comfortable. May the water in my body mix with the totality of air, with the water. And when Krishna goes into a pond, he'll be cooled and refreshed, and I'll serve him that way. May the air in my body mix with the totality of air. So when his servant is fanning him, then I can serve him by cooling him down. So even though the bodies in the spiritual, they're not made of the 5 elements, don't get me wrong. But they have a feeling, and there's a kind of spiritual analogy or an analogous type of elements there only. And so when the bhav touches those elements, it still produces all these types of ecstatic transformations. You should understand like that. So it's analogous to our earth, but it's not material. They're not material elements. But it's similar. Now, consider this. Come back to this graphic we discussed, 3 days ago. Remember, you have chitta vrittis which are moving. In your conscious mind, in your subconscious mind, samskars and everything. And that's the movement of pran. The pran also overflows from the mind into the senses. And that's how the mind controls the body. The pran is the interface between the mind and the body. You think, let me raise my hand, and you raise your hand. Why? Because the thought was pran, and that pran came connected through the senses, and then you move the physical body. So that's how it works. Now what happens in the state of Mahabhav when their chitta, where their consciousness can't even contain the love anymore, that it manifests like another consciousness above that consciousness. So that lower consciousness is now so saturated with prem that it cannot control the prem at all. So it's not that just a little Shuddha Sattva goes into the senses and makes some sattvic bhavs. But rather, the Mahabhav overflows from the Chitta through the prans into the whole body of the gopis, and that's why the next symptom after Swasamveda Dasha is Prakashita. Only the gopis have this Prakashita in the stage of Udipta. 5, 6, 7 or 8 sattvic bhavs all at the same time. Blazing, absolutely blazing. Radhika is crying so much it's washing the kajal from her eyes. Her body is trembling, her hairs are standing on end, and she's glowing. That's why it's called Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi. She's like molten gold, she's glowing. Devi Krishnamayi Prakta. What does Devi mean? Devi Kaha Jotamana Paramasundari. She's most beautiful and she's Jotamana, she's glowing. So then the body cannot even the body now, the mind has become completely one with Mahabhav. And just for comparison, I want to say that the queens of Dwarka, they love Krishna, but they also have some of their own desires. They want children, and they each have 10 sons and 1 daughter. And so their mind, their chitta, never becomes completely one, even with the vritti of prem. But the gopis, their entire chitta, vritti, becomes completely saturated with Samvit and Ladini in the level of intensity of Mahabhav. And they cannot even control it, and it overflows into their body and makes Prakashita. And then their entire body becomes one with Mahabhav. And that's why Radhika is called what? Mahabhava Swarupa Sri Radha Thakurani Sarvaguna Kani Krishna Kanta Shiramani. Why is Radhika called Mahabhav Swarup? Because even though everyone's body is made of Sandini, because of Anurag going in Swasamveda Darshan overflowing, her entire body becomes one with Mahabhav itself. So she's called Mahabhav Swarup. Understand? These are words that you all know and you've read them. Radhika's Mahabhav Swarup. Radha Krishna, Rasaraj Mahabhav. You all know them. But they have very, very deep meanings. And you have to go through the stages that Rupa Goswami has taught to understand really the significance, Vidvat Vriddhi, the actual significance of it. So she comes Mahabhav Swarup. And now, it's so many wonderful dimensions of Leela and appreciation open. Why? Because it said, Vasanti hi premni gunana vastuni. Vasanti hi premni gunana vastuni. This means that the quality of an offering doesn't lie in the substance itself. It lies in the love with which it's given. You see? So let's say the wife of Vidura, Vidurani, she was in such ecstasy. She wanted to give Krishna a banana, but in ecstasy she threw the banana away and put the peel on the plate and gave it to him. And what happened? Then Krishna, suddenly he felt delicious. I never felt like this before. I'm really feeling peckish for a bite of banana peel. Huh? Why? Because it's the love that creates the hunger. It's the love of the devotee that creates the hunger in Krishna. And then he tasted that banana peel and he was satisfied. Because Vasanti hi premni gunana vastuni. It's not the quality of the offering that it's real virtue, but it's the love with which it's given. And so because the gopis, the elderly gopis in Braj, they love Krishna so much, when they make butter, he can't stop himself. He has to go and burgle their houses and steal their butter. You see? But he'll not go to an ordinary person's house to steal their butter. Even if someone offers it to him, but without love, he will not eat it. So it's the love that Krishna tastes, not the offering. But now, with Mahabhav, you have this problem. Huh? Krishna wants to taste the gopis' love. So if they offer him a flower or they cook something for him, that's fine. But the problem with this, can you see the problem with Mahabhav? The problem is this, that their whole chitta becomes one with Mahabhav. It overflows and their whole bodies become one with Mahabhav. Their bodies are the love. So now Krishna has to taste their bodies, and that's called Sringarasa. That's why it looks like lusty, amorous activities. It's not lusty, amorous activities. Krishna is not lusty. He's not kami. Krishna is premi. He only wants to taste love. But the ecstatic problem in Vrindavan is that the gopis are made of love. They're Mahabhav. Like this. So he can't just they can't just cook for him or send him a garland. He actually, Jai Radha Madhava, Jai Kunja Bihari. The actual Nikunja Leela has to take place. You see? Understand why the amorous pastimes of Krishna, they're absolutely necessary. But there's not a tinge, there's not the slightest trace of lust there. It only appears to be like that to a person who has a contaminated mind. And when the mind is contaminated, really, you should not hear the very confidential pastime. I'm not describing those confidential pastimes. But I'm just saying, in principle, why we should understand that it's completely pure. That the gopis and Krishna's love, it's not really the breaking of dharma at all. It's far beyond dharma. That's why Uddhava is saying, so ajustajam swajam aya chapatam chahitva. The gopis, they broke all maryada, they left their families, they left the Vedas. What does that indicate? That indicates that anuraga turned into Mahabhav. And so he says, Bejo mukunda padavim shruti vimrigyam. And they serve directly the lotus feet of Krishna. That means they become his lovers. And even the Vedas personified are still searching for Krishna's lotus feet. The Vedas personified. So here the teaching is, no, the gopis don't have to follow the Vedas. Why? Because the Vedas are trying to follow the gopis. So, we discussed, we're discussing the definition of Mahabhav. It has three conditions. If it doesn't have three things, it's not Mahabhav. So the first one, Swasambhedya Dasha. And then the next one, it overflows and prakashita, the whole body becomes illuminated with all the sattvic bhavs. But then you know what happens? One meaning of Yavadashraya Vritti we already explained. You remember that. Now we're coming to the next one, which is very important. That even their bodies cannot contain the Mahabhav, and it spreads out from the body and starts to disturb everything. That's Yavadashraya Vritti. When the Vritti of the Mahabhav can't even be contained by the body, and it spreads out and starts to disturb everything. And there are two levels. In Rudra Mahabhav, it's called Asanjanita Ridvilolan. That means if anyone's close enough to see or close enough to hear, they will be affected by it. And this is why, for example, when Radha Krishna meet very intimately in the Kunja, they would be shy in front of Lalita and Vishaka. So they give them space and they go, they recede, they retreat onto the bank of a Yamuna, and they sit under a tree and engage in rasalap, rasic topics with each other, while Radha and Krishna play in the Kunj. But the Manjaris, they stay there. So what to speak of if they're inside, even if they're outside and they're just looking through the window, then when Radha and Krishna meet together, just see. You know, Krishna has said, Yayatamam prapadyante, I reciprocate with everyone. So if Krishna will meet with his parents, then he'll feel their affection and he'll feel affection for them. If he'll meet with the queens of Dwarka, they'll feel anurag for him and he'll feel anurag for them. But Krishna can't even experience Mahabhav unless he meets with the Braj Gopis. Because they have Mahabhav and because he always reciprocates. So then the Gopis give him an experience that he cannot experience. And because the Gopis, their hearts are filled with Mahabhav, their bodies are filled with Mahabhav, and it spreads out from them. So Krishna comes into that state. So Krishna becomes more beautiful. He starts to glow in a way that he never glows when he's with the boys or with Madhya Yashoda or his servants or anyone, or in Dwarka. He begins to glow in a way that he cannot glow in any other situation. And when he's with Radhika, he glows in such a way that he'll never glow like that if he's with Chandravali or any other gopi. So that Krishna, who's overflowing with Mahabhav and glowing like never before, only when he's with Radhika, that's called Ujjwala Nilamani. He's a Nilamani, he's a sapphire, and he's Ujjwala, he's blazing with all the sattvic bhavs and glowing. And he's never ever that beautiful unless he's with Radhika. If they wake up in the morning, Mangalak, they wake up and then they walk home a certain distance together, but then they have to go in different directions. And when Radha Krishna part and Radhika goes, there's a village called Doman, means two hearts. One heart is walking along Radha Krishna, but then they have to go to separate. Radhika goes to Yavat and Krishna goes to Nandagan. So that place called Doman, that village in Braj. Everyone, come on Braj, Manda Parikrama, please. I take straw between my teeth and give Dandavat Pranam 1,000 times. Please join us for the month of Kartik this year. We'll go to all of these places. So when Radha and Krishna, they're glowing with Mahabhav. And then when they separate and they just walk a little distance, then that glow disappears. It's the Krishna's Karaj Goswami and Govinda Lilamrita and Vishwacharita and Krishna Bhavanamrita. He describes, and as Krishna is walking out and Radha walks away, after some time, then their glow disappears. And then they enter into their home. But why does the glow disappear? Because of this. You see? Without understanding let us say, Gurudev said that Rupa Goswami is giving like the grammar of Rasa Tattva. You can't make a sentence if you don't know grammar. You see? So without knowing the grammar of Rasa Tattva, you cannot understand the language of the poetry of the Acharyas. So this is why their glow disappears as they're entering into their homes. Okay. So now, what are we discussing? How the overflowing from the mind into the body, the body becomes of the nature of Mahabhav. So then for Radhika to taste Krishna's love and Krishna to taste Radhika's love, they actually have to have the uniting pastime, Sambhog Maya Lila. And then they cannot contain it. And from Radha Krishna, this Yavadashray Vritti. Vritti means the function of their Mahabhav is extending to its fullest level. That means spraying out everywhere. And in the stage of Ruddha Mahabhav, it affects those who are close enough to see and close enough to hear. And that's why the Manjaris are the most fortunate. They're not the highest. By Padmaryada, that means by status, Padmaryada. By the etiquette of their status, the Sakhis, Lalita and Vishakha are higher than the Manjaris. But by Seva Saubhagya, that means by the fortune of their service opportunities, the Manjaris are superior. Understand? The Sakhis are superior by what? Pad Maryada. Pad means status and Maryada means etiquette. So by the etiquette of their status, they're superior to the Manjaris and they're our gurus. But by Seva Saubhagya, that means the good fortune of service opportunities, the Manjaris are more fortunate. Because when the Sakhis go at some distance, but the Manjaris are still close to see and hear, then what happens? Pranayamaya vayasya kunjarandra pitakshi chititalamanu labda nandamurcham patanti pratirata vidadhano pratirata vidadhano chestitais chitra chitre smaranibritani kunje radhika krishna chandrao. Rupa Goswami Pad in his Nikunja Bilas Stava, Nikunja Rahasya Stava, he's saying that Pranayamaya Vayasya, the Manjaris, the maidservants of Radhika, Kunjarandra Pitakshi, they offer their eyes to the lattice window of the Kunj. That's called the Randra. Kunjarandra, the holes in the lattice window. They offer their eyes there. And what do they see? Oh, it's indescribable. But only we can say, Chititalamanu labdanandamurcham patantim. They experience such ananda at that time. Pratirata vidadanu. How Krishna is pleasing Radhika, how Radhika is pleasing Krishna, gives them such ananda that murcham patanti, they faint and fall to the ground. If anyone will see the Kunj from far away, there's just like Manjus lying on the floor scattered everywhere. They couldn't, they just looked in and then fainted and all the Manjus are lying on the ground. Why? Yavadashray Vritti. This is Yavadashray Vritti. So this is why Gurudev would sometimes speak about the, Tramrupa Manjari Sakhi Patita Puresmin Pumsa Parasha Badinamna Hipasasiti Bimbadrakshadam Anagata Bhartikaya Yattevya Daiki Mutat Chukabunga Vena. Rati Manjari is saying, oh Rupa Manjari, you're very famous in this village. As being a chaste lady, you never look even at the face of another man. But what is this fresh cut I see on your lip? Oh, I know, your lips are like bimba fruit. So maybe one parrot was confused and came and bit your lip. But Gurudev explained that no, because Radhika had the mark on her lip from meeting with Krishna by Yavadashray Vritti, then the same mark came on the body of Rupa Manjari. Like this. This is Yavadashray Vritti. So, there are many examples. We ran out of time. So I'll just give one example. Just one example. Have you read Venugit? Who's read Gurudev's Venugit? Yeah? Very good. Who can recite all the verses of Venugit? Huh? Once I was in Mumbai with Gurudev, and there was one devotee, he's a doctor. Maybe you know him. Hey, Dr. Purushottam, if you're watching, pranams. So, Dr. Purushottam, he came to see Gurudev. And Gurudev said to him, he was asking some very high questions about Vilap Kusumanjali. Gurudev said to him, do you know Upadeshamrita? Have you read Upadeshamrita? He said, yes, Gurudev. Gurudev said, recite it. He said, well, I've read it, but I don't remember everything. Gurudev said, reading and forgetting is not reading. Gurudev said, reading and forgetting is not reading. So anyway, Venugit. So there's one verse in Venugit, so beautiful. One gopi is saying, Nadyasthadat dupadarya mukunda gita avarta lakshita manobhava bhagna vega alinganasta gita murmi bhuja murare grinanti pada yugalam kamalopahara. Eyewitnesses have said when Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was giving a class one time and he quoted this verse, that he just started trembling uncontrollably and his color was fading and his hairs were standing on end and tears were flowing from his eyes and he became stunned. Just uttering this verse. So we'll take it that it was spoken by Radhika. Krishna is very far away. He's playing his flute somewhere. But Radhika, by bhava netra, by the eyes of her heart, the eyes of her feeling, it's as if she's in her home, she's in Yavat, but by the eyes of her feeling, she's gone there with him and she's watching what he's doing. And when Krishna plays the flute, Nadyastatat dupadarya mukunda gita, when Krishna plays the flute, then the Jamuna river and the other rivers in Braj, but especially the Jamuna, was flowing in this way, but suddenly the Jamuna became stunned. But more water was flowing, so it went into whirlpools. And the whirlpools were going around in such a way that the lotuses began to spin around. And the lotuses, 2 lotuses snapped. And the flower fell into the water. And then the waves, as Krishna came on the bank of Jamuna, Krishna actually entered into the water. And as he was entering into the water level rose up to his chest. And then went back down again. And then a wave brought 2 lotus flowers and they floated up to his lotus feet. This is what the verse says. Very beautiful. And under the guidance of Gurudev, Shyamarani made the painting, the Venugit painting, and you can see the whirlpools in the Jamuna and the lotuses, and the water is like a hand offering it to Krishna's lotus feet. So she, under the guidance of Gurudev, many of the verses of Venugit, she has hidden them here and there in that masterpiece. Yeah, we're going to be with Shyamarani now to celebrate this week, Lord Nishingadeva's Parents' Day and others. So if you want to come to Miami, please come. So what Gurudev has inspired and shared with us is quite amazing. Now, this is the outer meaning of the verse, but what's the inner meaning? Because Ras is always hidden. So what Radharani is really feeling, she's trying to hide that. But because those who have love see their own feeling in everything else, she's seeing her own mood in the Jamuna, and she's thinking, when Krishna entered the water, then the goddess Jamuna, she could not control herself, and she just jumped up to his chest to embrace him. Because Radharani is thinking, if Krishna walks by me, I will not be able to check myself. My curiosity, my kutuk, to experience the touch of Krishna and give him pleasure in that way, I won't be able to check it. So because she's thinking, I won't stop myself and I would embrace Krishna. So when the water level comes up, she's thinking that's what the Yamuna is doing. But she has a fear, but what if Krishna just doesn't reciprocate with me? I'd be so embarrassed, I will die of shame. And that's why she's thinking, that's why the Jamuna level went back down. And then she'll think, oh, I should just be more gentle and let me just offer some flowers at his feet. And so she was seeing her own thoughts, her own thought patterns and dreams. Because this is Purva Rag, Vainugit, it's before Radhika had the chance to meet with Krishna. So she's just dreaming, what would it be like to meet Krishna? Chapter 21. The Ras Leela doesn't start till chapter 29 of Bhagavatam. So you have to get the whole context. So Radhika's at home and she's just dreaming, what would it be like if I could get close to Krishna, but he's so far away. And she's seeing her own mood in nature and everywhere, and she's speaking about nature, trying to hide her mood. But as we discussed yesterday, there are so many things you try to hide, but they end up popping out. The more she tries to hide the mood, the more it manifests. So Radhika is speaking like this. And she sees that the Jamuna is agitated with amorous love by the sound of Krishna's flute. So everyone knows this verse. It's a very beautiful verse. It's a very beautiful image of Radhika in separation. Krishna is also playing his flute, thinking of Radhika as well. And the sound of his flute is so beautiful that the Jamuna is being agitated with waves of love. Okay? Everyone knows this. Now come to another level. Come to another level. We've discussed Yavadashray Vritti, how the power of Radhika's prem spreads out and asanjanata ridvilolan. It means it churns the hearts of those who are close enough to hear or see. In fact, the Manjuris, they become vyapt. That means they become pervaded by the vibration of Radhika's Mahabhav from head to toe. But that is in the level of Ruddhabhav. Now, Adi Ruddhabhav is another thing, that's a whole week of lectures. But I want to say that the Yavadashray Vritti is different when Prem goes to the next level, Adi Ruddhabhav. Do you know what it is? In Adi Ruddhabhav, Yavadashray Vritti produces something called Brahmanda Shobha Karita. It doesn't disturb only those who are close enough to see and hear. It disturbs the whole universe. That is the Yavadashray Vritti in the stage of Adi Ruddhabhav. It disturbs the whole universe. So Jiva Goswami Pad, in commenting on the verse, Nadyastadata Dupadaryamuk, Radharani is seeing Krishna, he's playing the flute. She's seeing the Jamuna river agitated by the sound of his flute. And that's her realization. That Jamuna is full of whirlpools and agitation because the sound of Krishna's flute. But do you know what the truth is? The truth is, when Krishna plays his flute, Radhika far away feels such intense separation that the Yavadashray Vritti of her Mahabhav is spreading out all over the universe, and it's her own separation that's agitating the Jamuna. So then the verse that seemed to be the glories of Krishna's flute is actually the glories of Radhika's praying for Krishna. Bale Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki jai, Varas Haniwali ki jai, Jai Jai Sri Radhe Shyam. Gaur Premanand. Oh, this is the verse of Ujjwalini Mani. I missed the slide, I got carried away. Varamrita Swarupa Sri Swam Swarupam Mano Nayet. That means that this Mahabhav, it overflows and the entire body of the Gopi in Mahabhav becomes of the same nature of Mahabhav itself. Varamrita. This is the highest, the greatest Amrita, nectar. But Swam Swarupa Mano Nayet. From it becomes one with the mind, and then after that spreads out through the entire Swarup and then cannot be contained. And the love affects everything in the universe, in the stage of Adiruddha Mahabhav. So there we are. This is the beautiful pastimes of Radha Krishna and their Sakhis, who are the Manobrittis of Srimati Radhika. It's an endless ocean of rasa, just like Mahaprabhu said to Rupa Goswami. Para para shunya gabir bhakti rasa sindhu, toma chakiti tahi kaye kabindu. Hey Rupa Goswami, this ocean of rasa is apara. It has no shores. You go in every direction, you can't find the end of it. And it has no bottom. You go down and there's no seabed. So, only to make you understand, Gurudev used to say, Mahaprabhu took the finger of Rupa Goswami, dipped it in the ocean of rasa and said, taste this. And Rupa Goswami tasted one drop and it became all his poetry. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ujjwal, Nilamani, Vidagdha Madhav, Lalit Madhav, and everything. So, this is a very small introduction. So whatever you're doing, my Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur at the end of lectures, he used to say, Dante Nidaya Trinakam Padayo Nipatya. He used to say, oh, you were all very learned, you were all very qualified persons and important, doing important things. Now I'm begging you, whatever you're doing, just leave everything and take shelter of the lotus feet of Sachinandan Gohari. So this is the thing. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, just try to be always in the shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees and his service. Everything. If you are brahmachari or sannyas, fine. If you're grihasthas, fine. Your house is Krishna's house. Your deities own the house. It's not your house. It's Krishna's kunj. And you are living there. And everything, you use everything. All your family members and children. Engage everyone in the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because by doing this, one will eventually enter into this endless ocean of bhakti rasa. Achha. So I just want to sing little kirtan, a few lines, then then you'll sing the arti, right? And I'll meet with devotees also in the evening. Please come at